Welcome to Devour Darkness, where we bring you the most bone chilling horror stories from around the world. From terrifying tales of haunted houses to spine tingling accounts of paranormal encounters. Our channel is your one stop shop for all things horror. Join us as we journey into the unknown, exploring the darkest corners of the human psyche and unraveling the mysteries that lurk in the shadows. Are you ready to face your fears? Then sit back, turn off the lights, and prepare to be scared out of your wits. This is Devoured Darkness, and we're here to haunt your dreams. Leaving the comfort of my childhood home, I ventured out into the real world after graduating from college. It was time for me to start a new chapter of my life, and the first step was finding a place to call my own. On searching for an apartment to live in for almost half a month, I found an old house on the outskirts of the city. Samuel, who was the owner of the house, was a muscular middle aged man, almost in his 40s. He welcomed me with a greeting smile when I went in to inquire about the availability of a vacant room.
Yeah, sure. I am renting a room on the first floor. So, if you want to stay in my humble abode, be my guest.
Pleased with his friendly behavior, I asked him if I could see what the room looked like, to which he replied,
I am afraid, since no one has been living here except me for the last 2 months, it is not entirely in a nice condition. But don't worry, I would just be needing 2 days to clean all of the mess. He added, but if you still want to check the room, kindly follow me.
I agreed to his offer and went along with him to the first floor of the house. Reaching the room upstairs, I keenly glanced through it. This place was a little dusty, but easily bearable. As I made my way inside, I observed that the bedroom had a bed, a table, a chair, and a large window just beside the bed. As I peeped through the window, I could see Samuel's garden lying just underneath it. Walking away from the window, I went inside the kitchen attached to my bedroom. This room did not have enough space for both me and Samuel to be standing simultaneously inside it. So, as I finished checking through this room, I was ready with my verdict about this place. So, without giving any chance to Samuel, I spoke up. I hope that this place gets cleaned without any more delay because I want to get settled in as soon as everything is sorted out. Happy with my response, he gave me a firm handshake and then we parted ways. It almost took a week to complete all the paperwork and move all my stuff here. This time, when I opened the door, I was surprised to see that Samuel had cleaned the room immaculately. It was unrecognizable from the dusty mess I had seen before. Satisfied with the room's condition, I started unpacking my luggage. I didn't know how time had passed because when I lifted my face to check the time after this tiring work, the clock's hand pointed at 5 pm. Now that I noticed that it was almost evening, I felt extremely hungry, so I went out to find out some place to eat. As I came back after pacifying my hunger and was just about to climb the stairs to go into my room, I noticed that in Samuel's room, which was just beside the stairs, he was taking out some plastic pouches filled with some powdery substance from his drawer. and putting it in his bag. I felt guilty for invading his personal space, so I went up to my room, and after completing the remaining unpacking, I went off to sleep. The first few nights were incredibly peaceful. I relished in the tranquility of the house and the freedom of living on my own. However, my newfound independence also came with responsibilities. I had to work long hours and stay up late to complete reports for my new job, but it was all worth it to have the financial freedom I had always wanted. One night, as I was sitting in front of the table working on my laptop, I heard some whispers coming from the garden. It was unusual for someone to be awake at such an odd hour, so I decided to check through the window. On investigating, I couldn't find anyone in the backyard. Inside me, I was satisfied to find no one there and shrugged it off easily as I drowned myself back into my work. Finishing off, I let out a sigh of relief as I dropped my exhausted body onto the bed. Next morning, I woke up late as I needed to get ready for work. As I was taking out my suit from the wardrobe, strangely, I found a woman's scarf neatly folded beside my clothes in the closet. I was sure that this wasn't here all this time, so taking it in my hands, I started scrutinizing it carefully. As I ran down my hands on this piece of cloth, its fabric indicated that it was rather an old piece of clothing. I got a certain fruity smell, which was presumably of a woman's perfume, from this scarf. As I was fidgeting around this cloth, I turned my face towards the clock, which apparently had stopped at 2:39. There was no time left for me to be fixing with these problems right now, so tossing the scarf on the bed, I hustled my way through the clothes and rushed out to get to my office. After a long day at work, as I trudged my way back home, all I could think about was the lecture I received from my boss. But as soon as I reached home, my thoughts were distracted by the memory of the scarf I had found earlier that day. I had left it on my bed, but now it was nowhere to be seen. After searching for a while, I finally found it beneath the bed. But something else caught my attention. As I reached out to grab the scarf, my hand hit something wooden. I pulled it out and realized it was a painting of a beautiful girl. She couldn't have been more than 20 years old, with blonde hair and a captivating smile. I couldn't help but wonder who she was and why the painting was hidden under my bed. Exhausted from the day's work, I decided to put off the investigation until the next day and went to bed. But in the middle of the night, I was woken up by a woman's cries. At first, I thought it was just a nightmare, but as the cries grew louder, I realized they were coming from my room. I stumbled out of bed and found myself standing in front of my own door. Confused and disoriented, I pushed open the door, and what I saw made my heart stop. The girl from the painting was tied to my chair with the scarf wrapped around her mouth to muffle her screams. I rushed towards her to untie her, but before I could even touch her, the door opened behind me. As I turned around, a figure wearing a veil entered the room. He walked past me as if I wasn't even there and stood in front of the girl. I could hear his evil laughter as he pulled out a knife and began stabbing her repeatedly. I was paralyzed with fear and couldn't move a muscle. But as the figure turned towards me, I mustered up the courage to pull off the veil, and there, standing in front of me, was a face I recognized all too well. I was so horrified that I shut my eyes tightly, but when I opened them again, I was back in my bed, drenched in sweat. Was I lying on my bed this whole time? Unable to recover from the vivid sight, I was testifying this whole time. I was just not ready to label it as a simple dream. As I recalled the events in the nightmare, a thought dawned upon me. What was Samuel doing there? This time, I was certain that he was the person who was behind the mask in my dream. So I made up my mind, and in search of answers, I carried the painting down to his room. He was taken aback as I unexpectedly showed up in his room. Showing the painting to him, I asked, I found this portrait in my room, so can you please enlighten me about the person inside this picture? As these words came out of my mouth, I noticed his usual friendly expression changed into a perplexed look as if he was out of his words. After a moment of silence, he finally spoke up.
Where did you find this picture?
I found it kept just below my bed. I replied without any hesitation. After thinking for a moment, he came up with,
This is Lily. She was a girl who had rented this place approximately a year ago, and she left this place just 2 months before you decided to settle in.
This wasn't enough to convince me, but without questioning him any further, I returned back to my room, eagerly waiting for the night to set in. I felt that this girl was subject to something horrible in this place, and as if it was trying to convey something. Finishing my dinner early that day, I quickly dozed off to sleep. The darkness of the night was abruptly shattered by a blinding light that pierced through my open door, jolting me awake. As I stumbled towards the source, I found myself in front of my landlord's room, transfixed by the radiant glow seeping through the crack of the door. My eyes adjusted to the illumination, and I noticed a shadowy figure within, frantically recording the light emanating from Samuel's drawers. But before I could even process what was happening, a noise at the front door diverted the woman's attention towards me. Startled, she charged towards me, but instead of colliding, she dissipated through me like a phantom. This was when I realized I was trapped in another one of my vivid dreams, but this time I was determined to unravel the mystery. As I watched Samuel enter the room, he seemed to ignore me and nonchalantly closed the drawers, picking up a familiar scarf from the ground. My heart raced as I recognized it as the same one he used to tie the woman's face in my previous dream. His once calm expression now twisted into an unsettling sneer, leaving me to wonder where Lily had gone. As I made my way back to my room, I was shocked to see Samuel, who was downstairs just a minute ago, emerge from my room, drenched in sweat, dragging something behind him. Frozen in my tracks, I watched in horror as he dragged Lily's lifeless body outside and buried her in the far corner of his garden. Unable to resist, I followed him and stood petrified as he completed his heinous act and returned inside. But as I inched closer to the burial site, an ominous feeling crept over me, and suddenly everything plunged into darkness. The next thing I knew, I was surrounded by countless glowing eyes, and a chorus of eerie whispers echoed through the emptiness. Free me! They hissed, and my heart raced with fear and anticipation. With this sentence echoing inside my head, I woke up next morning knowing what I was destined to do. It was a daunting task, but I knew I had to try, for Lily's sake. Finding nobody in the house, I decided to break into Samuel's room, confident that the secret was hidden inside these drawers. So, opening it up, I found a huge stash of illegal drugs stored in them. Following what I had seen in my dream, I pulled out my phone to capture what I had found as a proof. Suddenly, I heard the door click behind me. To my terror, as I turned around, I saw Samuel standing right behind me with a sinister grin on his face.
So, it seems that you want to follow Lily's footsteps, huh? Then you might have to face the same consequences she dealt with.
Verbalizing his anger through his voice, I felt a jaw crushing punch as I lost my balance to hit the table. Blood gushed from my head as I struggled to stand up, but Samuel wasn't done yet. He grabbed me by the neck and pressed me down on the desk. My life flashed before my eyes as I gasped for air, but just as I thought it was the end, something strange happened. Samuel was suddenly lifted into the air, writhing and gasping for breath. It was as if some invisible entity had taken hold of him, and I watched in amazement and horror as he was held by the neck, struggling to breathe. After a few moments, he went limp and fell to the ground unconscious. I was terrified but relieved, as I knew I had been given a second chance. My heart was pounding as I ran towards the police station, desperate to report the heinous crime that I had just witnessed. I could still feel the weight of Samuel's cold hand on my shoulder, and the memory sent shivers down my spine. As I burst into the station, gasping for breath, I could see the surprise on the faces of the officers on duty. Quickly, I explained what I had seen, my words stumbling out in a panicked rush. The police were skeptical at first, but something in my tone must have convinced them. Within minutes, a team of officers was following me back to the house. As we arrived at the residence, I could see the fear in their eyes as they realized that this was no false alarm. The officers quickly located the drugs that I had told them about, and as they searched the house, I directed them towards Samuel's room. The sight that greeted us was truly horrifying. Samuel lay slumped on the ground and his body racked with convulsions. As the police frantically tried to resuscitate him, I told them about the dead body buried in Samuel's garden. The police immediately sprang into action, half of them rushing to dig up the corpse while the other half handcuffed Samuel and escorted him out of the house. As they worked, they asked me about the girl's identity, and when I spoke her name, Lily, their eyes widened in shock. It was the same girl who had gone missing 3 months ago from that very house. As the officers continued to dig, I gazed towards the window of my room, my mind reeling with the horror of what I had just witnessed. She was there. Lily was there, standing behind the window, a smile piercing her lips, and then, just as quickly as she appeared, she vanished into thin air, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the terrible weight of what I had seen. That's all for tonight's journey into the world of horror. We hope you enjoyed the tales we have shared with you and that they'll keep you up all night. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. If you have a terrifying tale of your own that you'd like us to narrate, please send it our way. We love hearing from our viewers and sharing their content with our community. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the darkness. Until next time, keep your doors locked, your lights on, and remember to never let your guard down. This has been Devour Darkness, signing off. Good night and sweet dreams, if you dare.